I couldn't believe what I was seeing on my phone. There was no mistaking that voice. It was Matthew Jones, my boss for the last 22 years. In the short video, Matthew stood in the middle of our company's annual staff party, a whiskey glass in his hand, surrounded by colleagues I'd known for decades. He was laughing and talking about me as if I were nothing. Alexis is such a useless fool. Next month, she's gone. She has no idea it's coming, he said. Some people in the crowd laughed. Others looked uncomfortable, but nobody stood up for me. That video had been sent to me late at night by Jeffrey, a junior analyst I had trained since his first day. His message was simple. Thought you should see this before Monday. The words from Matthew stung deeply. After 22 years of loyal work at Jones and Phillips Consulting, I was just the punchline to their jokes. I watched the video over and over, listening to Matthew's cruel words. She thinks she can't be replaced. Just wait. Next month someone new will be in her chair, and she won't even notice it coming. All those late nights, missed family moments, and weekends spent fixing Matthew's mistakes suddenly meant nothing. I had always been the one to support him, to defend him even when others doubted his abilities. Now, I was left feeling hurt and betrayed in a way I never expected. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling a mix of anger, embarrassment, and something else, determination. By morning, I was ready. At 8:15 a.m., I walked into the office just like any other day. My heart was steady, and I kept my face calm. If Matthew thought I was clueless and would just walk into his trap, he was about to see how wrong he was. The office was busy as usual. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, and the smell of burnt coffee in the air. Matthew's office door was open, and he was laughing with Paul, the CFO. I paused, smiled, and said, "Morning, Matthew." He glanced at me. For a split second, I saw something in his eyes, maybe guilt, or maybe he still thought he'd won. "Alexis, have a good weekend?" he asked, smiling like nothing had happened. "Great weekend," I replied. "Ready for another busy month." He just smirked. I went to my desk and started my day, but I knew this was the beginning of something new. For the next 3 weeks, I played the part of the perfect employee. I smiled in meetings, volunteered for extra work, and stayed late like always. But beneath the surface, I was preparing for my next move. I quietly gathered important documents, emails, contracts, financial reports, things most people wouldn't think twice about. I made sure to keep everything safe. I also reached out to my old clients, the ones who were loyal to me, not Matthew. I hinted that I might be open to new opportunities, and they were immediately interested. I spoke with a corporate lawyer to get advice and protect myself. And I contacted a rival company that had been trying to recruit our top talent. I wasn't just planning to leave. I was planning to take everything Matthew took for granted with me. On my last day, I came to work early. Matthew still hadn't told me I was being fired. He thought he'd surprise me, call me into his office, and give me some speech about restructuring. He had no idea I already knew what was coming. He had no idea I was already 4 steps ahead. All day, I watched Matthew from across the office, a polite smile on my face hiding the storm inside me. He was so sure of himself, joking with Paul as if everything was normal. But today, he wasn't going to win. I wasn't just leaving. I was making sure this was the day things began to fall apart for him. The day moved on as usual, emails, meetings, reports. No one knew that behind my calm expression, everything was about to change. I could sense it, a quiet change in the air, the feeling that people were watching me. There were whispers behind closed doors and glances in my direction when they thought I wouldn't notice. Still, I kept myself calm and moved through the day as if everything was normal, pretending I had no idea what was about to happen. If anyone was hoping for tears or a desperate scene, they were in for a disappointment. At exactly 4 p.m., I saw Lauren from HR go into Matthew's office. She kept her face blank and didn't even glance at me. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message. "Matthew Jones, please come to my office at 4:25. There it was. I took a deep breath, straightened my blouse, and got ready. It was time. I walked over, knocked on the door, and stepped inside with a polite smile. Lauren was there, sitting across from Matthew, a folder neatly in front of her. Classic HR routine. I had witnessed this scene before, but never as the person in the hot seat. Matthew put on his best concerned boss face. "Alexis, please have a seat," he said, voice careful and scripted. "We truly appreciate everything you've done for the company these past 22 years. But as you know, the industry is changing, and we've had to make some tough choices about staffing." I nodded like this was news to me. Matthew continued, "We've decided to restructure your role, and unfortunately, your position is being eliminated. We want to make the transition easy, so we're offering a generous severance package." Lauren slid the folder toward me. I didn't touch it. I noticed a flash of relief on Matthew's face. He'd been expecting anger or begging, maybe even tears. Instead, I just smiled. "I understand," I replied, my voice steady. He looked briefly unsure. This was going too smoothly for him. He cleared his throat. "We'll need your company laptop and badge before the day ends. And we'll ask you to sign a non-disclosure agreement to protect company information." Of course, they wanted to keep things quiet. But I didn't say anything, just waited. Matthew leaned in a bit, dropping his voice like he cared. "I know this must be tough, Alexis. But you're talented. I'm sure you'll land on your feet." I gave a small, knowing smile. "Oh, I'm sure I will. Just to be clear, this is the final decision." Matthew blinked, caught off guard. "Yes, it is." "Perfect," I said. "I'll start wrapping up my things." Matthew nodded, clearly eager for this to be over. "We appreciate your professionalism." I picked up the folder, gave them both a pleasant smile, and left the office. As I walked away, I felt 22 years of pressure finally lift from my shoulders. I was free. For the rest of the afternoon, I did exactly what they expected. Packed my things, smiled at my coworkers, and said polite goodbyes. It looked like I was just another employee leaving. But behind the scenes, I was tying up the last details of my plan. Before logging out for the final time, I carefully saved every email, every project file, and every client contract I still had access to. It was all perfectly allowed. I was still technically on the payroll until the end of the day. Then I sent one last email. Not to Matthew, but to the company's biggest client, the one responsible for 43% of our revenue. My message was short and professional. "Hi, Eric. I wanted to thank you for your partnership over the years. Since I'll be leaving Jones and Phillips soon, I wanted to let you know I'll be available for consulting work shortly. I'd love to talk about how I can continue supporting your company. Let me know if you're interested. If you want to set up a call, go ahead and send the invite." But honestly, that single email I sent was probably more powerful than any lawsuit. At exactly 6 p.m., I left the building for the very last time. I didn't even glance back because I knew Matthew had no idea what was coming next. The morning after I quit, my phone started buzzing as soon as I woke up. The screen showed an unknown number, but I already knew who it was. I let the call ring and leaned back, smiling. Matthew was about to find out just how badly he had messed up. I thought I'd have a few days before things got chaotic. But Matthew's arrogance sped everything up. By 10 a.m., I already had 5 missed calls from Jones and Phillips. By lunchtime, I got a text from Jeffrey. "Alexis, whatever you did, the office is in complete meltdown. Eric White just pulled his contract. Matthew is freaking out." I actually laughed. Eric White, the CEO of our biggest client, the one I'd sent a polite goodbye email to, had figured things out. With me gone, there was no stability left. Matthew always thought I was easy to replace. He never realized I was the glue holding everything together. Now that I was gone, the whole thing was falling apart. At 3:20 p.m., my phone rang again. This time, I answered. "Hello," I said calmly. There was a tense pause, then Matthew's voice, tight and controlled. "Alexis, I just heard about Eric. He said you reached out." "I did," I replied, keeping my voice steady. He went quiet for a moment, not used to hearing me so calm. "Listen," he finally said, trying to sound relaxed. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Eric seems to think you're going to work somewhere else. He got nervous." I'd like to clear things up. There it was, he wanted me to fix his disaster. I sat back, twirling my pen. Matthew, I said, you told everyone I was useless, that I'd never see it coming. So, why do you need me now? The silence on his end was heavy. He knew exactly what I meant. Alexis, he tried again, slower this time. You know that was just office talk. I cut him off, my voice almost friendly but with an edge. I don't hold grudges, Matthew. I just make smart choices. Eric did, too. I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. Are you working for someone else? He asked, his worry showing now. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. I don't see how that's any of your business. There was a long pause. Then he warned, this isn't a good move, Alexis. We have a lot of shared contacts in this industry. So, there was the threat. He was trying to scare me, still thinking he had control. That was his biggest mistake. After the call, I wasted no time. I pulled out my notes and checked my plans, because Matthew was just the beginning. Over the past month, I'd quietly talked with his biggest competitors. The companies he always pretended not to worry about, but secretly tried to undercut. And one of those firms was very interested in me. At 4 p.m., I walked into a modern office downtown. The receptionist already knew my name. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Jack Thompson, the CEO of Sterling and Company. I could hear the fear in his voice. He finally realized this wasn't just some bad luck. This was because of me. I could almost picture Matthew sitting at his desk, feeling his power slip away, understanding now just how much he had underestimated me, and this was only the start. By 5 p.m., I got another message from Jeffrey. Emergency board meeting just called. The investors are panicking. They're talking about replacing Matthew. I couldn't help but feel satisfied. This was exactly what I had planned. For years, Matthew had hidden his lack of skill by relying on my hard work. But now, with me gone, everyone could see the truth. In business, nothing ruins a CEO faster than doubt and dropping profits. The next morning, I made one last move. I walked into Jones and Phillips, not as an employee, but as a warning. The office felt strange and quiet, the usual buzz replaced by thick tension. People stared as I walked by, whispering behind their screens. Everyone knew what was happening. I reached Matthew's office and knocked. Come in, he answered, sounding tired. Inside, Matthew looked completely different. His tie was loose, he had dark circles under his eyes, and his confidence was gone. I shut the door and sat down across from him, just like the last time. But this time, things were different. How's it going, Matthew? I asked casually. His jaw tightened. Cut the crap, Alexis. What do you want? I tilted my head. Me? I just wanted to see how you were holding up. He let out a bitter laugh. You know how I'm doing. I smiled. Of course, I did. He took a shaky breath. Look, if there's a way to fix this, what would it take? There it was, the desperation, the surrender. I leaned in, speaking softly but clearly. There's no fixing this, Matthew. His face turned hard. You think you've won? I stood up, smoothing my jacket. I don't think I've won. I know I have. As I left his office for the final time, I turned back. Enjoy unemployment, Matthew. Then I walked away, leaving him sitting in the middle of the mess he'd made. Matthew thought he could control the situation, make a few calls, say some empty words, and things would go back to normal. But by the end of the week, Jones and Phillips weren't just struggling, it was falling apart, and everyone could see it. On Friday morning, the headlines were everywhere. Major clients leave Jones and Phillips. CEO under fire. Sterling and Company signs key clients. Is this the end for C&P? Investors lose faith in Matthew Jones. Every news outlet and business blog was talking about it. And me? I was sitting in my new office at Sterling and Company, sipping coffee and watching the company Matthew built, on arrogance and my hard work, crumble to nothing. At 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Jeffrey again. You're not going to believe this. Another emergency investor meeting. Rumor is Matthew's getting kicked out. I leaned back and smiled. Everything was happening exactly as planned. By 4 p.m., the board called everyone in, every top manager, every investor, and Matthew. All week, he'd been scrambling to fix things, but now it was too late. The end was here. The board had finally run out of patience. No more excuses were accepted. Matthew, who usually wore a confident smirk, tried to keep his cool. "I know things seem shaky right now, but I have a solution," he started. Before Matthew could say more, one of the senior board members cut him off. "Matthew, we've already talked to the top investors. This isn't up for debate." Matthew's smirk faded. The reality was impossible to ignore. The company was losing clients. The stock price had dropped by 30%, and Sterling and Company had completely outsmarted them. The board member's tone was sharp. "Do you realize how much damage has been done?" Matthew's face turned dark. "You think this is my fault?" he shot back. A dry laugh echoed from the end of the table. Another board member didn't hold back. "You fired the person who held this company together. Now she's using everything she learned here to destroy you." Matthew clenched his fists. He knew exactly who was behind this, and the worst part was, he couldn't do anything to stop it. At 4 p.m., an internal email went out. It was official. Matthew Jones had stepped down as CEO of Jones and Phillips Consulting. The company said an interim leadership team would be announced soon. I read the email twice, letting the moment sink in. Matthew Jones gone, fired, publicly embarrassed. Everything he had built over the years vanished in an instant. But for some reason, even that didn't feel like enough. Later, at 6:20 p.m., an email from Matthew landed in my inbox. The subject line simply said, "Let's talk." I couldn't help but smile. I opened it. "Alexis, I think we both know things have gotten out of control. I won't pretend we always agreed, but we worked together for a long time. I know you're behind this. I think it's time to let the past go. Let's meet." Desperate, predictable, and pathetic, I typed my reply. "Matthew, there's nothing to discuss. I already told you, this can't be fixed. Enjoy your weekend." I hit send. And just like that, I closed the final chapter of Matthew Jones's career. But my story was only beginning. The storm had passed. Matthew Jones was finished. His empire was gone, his reputation in ruins, and Jones and Phillips were left struggling to survive. But me? I was just getting started. That Monday morning, I walked into Sterling and Company's headquarters as their newest senior partner. I hadn't earned this role by playing office politics or making friends in high places. I got here because I was the best at what I did. Jack, the CEO, greeted me in the executive lounge with a firm handshake. "Welcome aboard, Alexis. I hear you've already made quite the impression." I smiled. "I like to get things done."
He laughed.
"That's exactly what we need. The clients you brought in, they trust you. More importantly, they're ready to grow with us." For the first time in years, I felt something new: excitement, possibility, control. This wasn't just a new job. It was a new beginning. But I should have known Matthew wouldn't disappear quietly. That afternoon, my assistant knocked on my door. "Alexis," she said, hesitating, "you have a visitor." I looked up, curious. "Who is it?" She looked uncomfortable. "Matthew Jones." I stared for a moment, then nodded. "Send him in." A few moments later, Matthew walked in. Or, rather, the man who used to be Matthew. The expensive suit, the cocky smirk, the untouchable attitude gone. He looked tired, defeated, smaller than I'd ever seen him. I leaned back, studying him in silence. He didn't sit. He didn't speak, at least, not at first. Finally, he let out a humorless laugh. "You really did it." I tilted my head and watched his jaw clench. He thought he had broken me, and maybe for a while he did. But I didn't bother correcting him because he wasn't completely wrong. Instead, I simply told him, "You destroyed yourself, Matthew." He let out a hard breath, surprised. "I underestimated you," he finally said. I nodded. "Yes, you did." A long, heavy silence hung in the air between us. Then he said something I never expected to hear. "I need a job." I almost laughed but stopped myself. Instead, I just looked at him. This was Matthew Jones, the same man who once mocked me, embarrassed me, called me useless in front of everyone. Now here he was, standing in front of me, desperate. It felt like justice. At that moment, I could have crushed him. I could have made him feel even a fraction of the pain he put me through. But I didn't. I just walked over and met his eyes, defeated and empty. "No, Matthew," I said calmly. "You don't need a job. What you need is a lesson." His eyes grew darker, but he stayed quiet. I gave him a cold, knowing smile. "Good luck, Matthew." Then I turned around, walked back to my desk, and dismissed him from my life forever. Later that night, I sat in my new office, gazing out at the city skyline. Everything felt different. For the first time in 22 years, I wasn't just another name on someone else's payroll. I was finally in charge of my future. My thoughts drifted back to that night, the shame, the mocking, the feeling of being betrayed. But things were different now. I wasn't Alexis, the easily replaced worker anymore. I was Alexis, the woman who shaped her path. I was the one who showed that trust should be reserved for those who truly deserve it. I had finally discovered my worth. Smiling, I raised my glass of wine and quietly spoke the words Matthew Jones never expected to hear. I win. This time for good.